Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Entrepreneur Aligned podcast. I'm your host, Jarrod Musick. Today, I wanted to talk about information management and information sharing amongst the family. So one of the reasons that we run into problems with estate planning and estate plan administration is that the volume of information that we have access to and the volume of information that our family is going to need access to either now or in the future continues to expand. And so we're talking about access to financial accounts, which is sort of where this whole process starts when you're thinking about privacy and access to things. So it can be as simple as, can your kids initiate transfers of money from one account to another? Does your spouse know where everything is? All of those different pieces. So when we're talking about information management, yes, financials are the number one. It's dollars are the fuel that allow you to run your life, right? If you run out of fuel, your life stops pretty quickly. So making sure that if you are out of town and unreachable, so doing a backpacking trip, do people have access to what they need? If you could potentially be incapacitated, right? Let's say on your backpacking trip, you end up having a fall and you're in the hospital for a period of time. Can everybody access the capital accounts that they need to? And then also, what if you're permanently incapacitated or when you pass away? Those things are normally covered during some of the estate planning process, but we've been running into them more frequently with our complex families that we work with. So entrepreneurs, this is also part of business planning and business continuity planning, right? So who has access to business financial accounts? Who has administrator rights to key systems? Who's able to make decisions or instruct vendors or even employees to take on certain tasks, do certain things, provide certain information, right? So when we're thinking about finance, yes, you can start to compartmentalize and say, okay, where's the money and who has access to it or who even knows about it? When we think about private investments, this one comes up quite frequently. So if you've done a subscription agreement, you've subscribed to a particular private investment, where's that listed? Is that tracked on your balance sheet? Does your family know how to review your net worth and go, okay, well, this private investment is with ABC company. Who is that? How do I even reach out to them if I need to inquire about the investment or what's happening? Beyond getting letters in the mail, which is still honestly something that happens, people can even forget that they have made certain investments. So you may forget about it until, oh yeah, I got an update in the mail, an annual report came through or an email. I forgot that I had put $25,000 or $50,000 into this investment a handful of years ago. So really making sure that you have those private investments noted and that they're part of your consolidated financial package. Now, part of the reason that this comes up is I recently sat on a panel where we were talking about aging and longevity and end-of-life care and all of these different things that we all deal with as we're helping with others. And then ultimately, we will all face them for ourselves, hopefully many, many decades down the road, but we will face them. And so thinking about, okay, how do we actually keep track of everything? And this goes into things like social media accounts, email accounts, two-factor authentication tokens, right? This is a new one that's really come up in the last 6 or 7 years, where if you have Google Authenticator, Authy, some other type of two-factor authentication that's tied to a cell phone, well, if somebody passes away and you don't have a methodology to be able to get into their phone, or perhaps you do, but as part of your personal representative duties, you cancel the cell phone plan or take the number off of the cell phone plan, you've now lost the two-factor authentication tokens that you would need. And so information management is becoming a bigger challenge for families. So we see this on two parts of the spectrum. You have families like mine where you have children who are not yet age of majority and we're trying to bring them up to speed, empower them with information, give them good things to learn and things to participate in at the proper pace and the proper time, right? So how do you provide that access? One of the questions that we get asked is, at what age should I open bank accounts for my kids or credit cards for my kids? Should I start building credit history for them as soon as they're born? Should I wait until later on? That's always a tricky one because you really want them to have a great credit history so that they can obtain credit. At the same time, you may not want them to have the world's most outstanding credit history so that when they turn 18, they can start taking on more credit and utilizing it more than you would like them to. So really just thinking through how much do you want them to have access to and at what point in life. It's some of the work that we do, thinking that through with our families and helping come up with a plan for bringing children up to speed. Now, once we get into our middle age, 30s, 40s, and 50s, they talk about that being the sandwich generation, that you, even if your children are older, potentially grown and out of the house, out of college, they're still leaning on you for certain things. You're still helping to finance things. You're still helping to train them and help them figure out how to move forward in their early career. And at the same time, you most likely have aging parents, aging in-laws, aunts, uncles, different people who are also leaning on you for support. So whether that's just care and coordination, it could be helping manage vendors around their house. So if they have, housekeeper, landscaper, any kind of home health providers, in-house meal prep, laundry, any of those number of domestic chores, you may be helping them start to take over management of those people who are helping them remain independent. And then as their ability to remain independent starts to diminish, looking at, okay, what information do I, as the person who's just informally helping them or as their power of attorney, what information do I have and what information do I need access to and how am I retaining that? So every family and every person is different. So whether you're helping 14-year-old kids or 84-year-old parents, thinking through the process of what am I likely to need now and need in the future. And one of the things that stuck with me through that panel was that for a concierge service that helps personal representatives and powers of attorney manage through end-of-life affairs for family members, their initial checklist, this is not their most advanced checklist, their initial checklist has 200 items on it. And a lot of those are information management. So thinking about all of that, where am I going to get access to all of this? Password keepers are a huge help, whether you're using LastPass or any number of other competitors to maintain access to passwords. Thinking through the process about being named in estate planning documents. So do you have authority and access to be able to help an aging parent continue to manage their finances going forward? Do you know where the estate plan is? Do you have copies of the powers of attorney so that you can provide those to prove that you are an authorized person to access financial accounts and other things? Medical power of attorney, you definitely want to make sure that you have that, as well as any of the advanced directives that those parents have laid out. So thinking about, what happens when, those types of healthcare directives that they have laid out that says around particularly end-of-life care, what decisions have been made in advance and how do they want you to operate? Do you have access to those? So lots and lots and lots, but I think from our seat in the financial coordination seat, yes, we see everything from an estate planning perspective and a legal perspective, and that takes a lot of our attention as well. But maintaining access and visibility to those core investments and then working with entrepreneur families, we do typically see quite a lot of private investments that are there. So making sure that as you're creating that in your 30s, 40s, and 50s, and you're building this complexity into your wealth management system, that you have really good tracking and documentation. So for me personally, spreadsheets are my best friend. Making sure that everything is, appropriately noted in there, that there are instructions on how to access things. Things are noted where it might be a digital tool that the access credentials are located in a password keeper. It might be something where there's a physical legal document. Where is that legal document located? How would you go get it? All of my stuff has digital copies, but that may or may not be the case for you. So really just providing that guide for people who are going to be helping you at some point during your life is a big part of information management when you have high complexity. The last piece that I'm going to touch on is business continuity planning, because this can get overlooked. So really thinking through, if you have a sudden incapacity or a sudden death, or if you just want to be able to be off the grid on a sailboat sailing around the world for 6 months at a time, who's going to be able to access everything and make sure that your company continues to function and operate? In the business continuity sense, if you do have that permanent incapacity or you're passing, what's going to happen to provide liquidity for the equity inside the business? Are you going to transition those shares to your family, right? Is it a family business and you want your spouse to continue operating it? Do you want your children to continue operating it? Do you want someone else to operate it for a period of time until your children decide whether they want to be involved or not want to be involved? So thinking through who's going to be involved, who are the empowered people, the trustees, all of those different pieces is a big part of business continuity planning. And then around the exit and liquidity planning, will it harm the equity value of your business if you need to provide liquidity fairly shortly, right? So what's named in your operating documents, especially if you have business partners, how do they provide you liquidity? Do they have to do it immediately? Does your family have to take on a seller carried note for a period of time or indefinitely? These are all questions that need to be answered. They need to be inside your operating documents, and they need to be really, I'm going to say attached, but associated with your personal estate planning documents and all of your financial ownership documents, so that anybody who's going to have to step into a situation for a period of time or forever has what they need to have to be able to manage all of this information. So hopefully this at least raised your eyebrows about the amount of information, the amount of electronic data, the amount of access points that we have to have, whether that's inside your Instagram account, all the way to your financial accounts and your business equity and ownership, thinking through who has access to those and who's going to need it in the future and how are you going to meet those needs. If we can help you with any of this, don't hesitate to reach out to our team at entrepreneuraligned.com. Send me an email. Would love to connect and explore this topic more deeply because, as I mentioned about 5 minutes ago, every family, every business, every financial situation is unique and different. And so planning for those is a unique process, and we're happy to help with that. Thanks so much for giving me some of your valuable time today, and I'll be back with another episode soon.